So the 1987 season for the Montreal Canadiens showed great promise. Not only were the defending Stanley Cup champions, they had pretty well two number one goalies in the lineup ready to go. The Conn Smythe and Stanley Cup winner Patrick Roy, and a very talented and very capable Brian Hayward. Now, at the time, they were playing in the Habs division as part of the Wales Conference. Now, the season was a little bit mediocre, but the plus-minus was really good. Plus 36 on the campaign with a 41-29-10 record. Now, Jean Perron, the former University of Moncton head coach who had guided the Habs to the 86 title, was still running the squads. And the leadership of Bob Gainey, Matt Snaslin, Larry Robinson, Bobby Smith, Chrissy Allen played the huge factors. Now, as it stood out that season, Montreal had started off quite slow. They went 0-2 to start the campaign, including a very, very stunning 7-4 loss at home on the road to the Toronto Maple Leafs to start the campaign, and then a loss to the Oilers at home 5-4. Now, as the season went on, he showed some signs of improving. He had a very tough 5-game losing streak in late November, early December, but by February, they were getting to be a little more consistent. Now, they ended the campaign undefeated in 10 games with 9 straight wins, defeating the New York Islanders 3-0, Buffalo 3-2, hammered Toronto 9-4, knocked off Quebec 4-3, Buffalo 6-3, Pittsburgh 4-1, Hartford 3-2, Boston 3-1, and the Rangers 8-2. So there was much promise for them going into the postseason. But what really hampered them as well was a bad defensive year for Matt Snaslin. Despite 80 points in 79 games, he was -3. And overall, only Larry Robinson was consistent on the defensive side. And of course, the kid line, which included Brian Scriggling. Now, the idea about the 87 season, Patrick Roy wasn't the number one goalie that year. Brian Hayward was called upon several times to play in relief of Patrick Roy or late game situations. Patrick Roy ended up with a 22-16-6 record in 46 games, while Hayward was 19-13-4 in 37 contests, with a better average of 2.81. Now, once the playoffs started, it got kind of bizarre for Montreal. Now, Patrick Roy had started all 4 games against Boston in the opening round series. We all know that Boston was swept by Montreal the year before. Now we're looking right now at a 6-2 win the opener at the Forum, 4-3 in overtime game 2, a 5-4 win in Boston, and a 4-2 wrap-up in game 4. So everything seems to be going good. However, guess who they're going to face in the quarterfinal round? Of course, the Quebec Nordiques. Quebec came into Montreal running on all cylinders. Patrick Roy had a terrible game, and he lost 7-5. They brought Brian Hayward in for the rest of the series, and even despite a 2-1 loss, Montreal in Game 2, they rebounded with 7-2 and 3-2 victories in Quebec, the second game in overtime, then won 3-2 at home, lost a tough 3-2 decision in Game 6 in Quebec, where a lot of people thought Montreal should have won, but Montreal rebounded for a big 5-3 win. Of course, that was known as the the non-call, where a penalty should have been called and it was coincidental minors. Anyway, so who we were going to face in the semifinals. Now, here was an interesting thing. You didn't know until the last moment. The New York Islanders were giving Philadelphia fits in that series. They had trailed 3-1 and won in the Spectrum 2-1 in Game 5, then back home on 4-2 at Nassau Coliseum. Game 5, it turned Philadelphia's way quite late, and they eventually won the series. Now, Montreal, Philadelphia, the long-time rivalry they had, of course, Montreal had played the Flyers in 76, and this series, you knew, was going to go at least 6 or 7 games. Now, the controversial opening game was a 4-3 overtime win for the Flyers when Terry Gregson held a call on a scramble in front of the net, and the puck eventually got in. He won 4-3 to Spectrum. However, Montreal rebounded for a 5-2 win in Game 2. Now, Philadelphia won 4-3 at the Forum, 6-3 at the Forum in back-to-back games, and was leading 3-1 coming home. But Montreal always played good at the Spectrum. He won 5-2. But of course, the last game was the pre-game brawl that involved Ed Hospodar and Claude Lemieux, Chico Resch, a whole bunch of players, and Flyers eventually emerged victorious with a very strange 4-3 victory. So Montreal's lack of offense, especially against big teams like the Flyers. This series, they lost 3 games by a 4-3 score. So that's the main reason why Montreal lost the series. Now, if they would have played Edmonton in the final, they would have probably gave everything the Oilers could handle, because we all know that the Flyers were behind 3 games of 1 in that series and came back and within 1 goal of that third period before I think Glenn Anderson scored to make it 3-1. So Montreal basically were unsuccessful in defending the title, but that gave an opportunity to build up, and of course 2 years later they got into the Stanley Cup Finals, and 4 years after that. So I don't call this a dynasty for Montreal Canadiens, but you look at 84, 86, 87, 89 and 93. They went quite deep in the playoffs. Got to the semifinals in 84, semifinals in 86, 87, 89 and 93, and 3 Stanley Cup final appearances. So again, they were a top 5 team at the time. But I think what really hurt Montreal is like Mats Nassen on the defensive side. Really his plus minus wasn't there, and Bob Gainey was getting older too as well. So that was a big factor. Now the big players for Montreal in the postseason was Nassen with 22 points in 17 games, including 7 goals, and -1. Robinson with still +4. And of all people, Ryan Walter had a very strong playoff. Some season Walter wouldn't score more than 15 goals. He had 19 points in 17 games. And the Brian Hayward numbers were tremendous. 2.74 average, 6 and 5 in 13 contests. So, I mean, but the Patrick Roy, if you can find the tape, it's not too many tapes of 87 playoffs, but you can find it. Patrick was just, I don't know, he was kind of a little mindless at times in the 87, maybe the post-Stanley Cup, what they call hangover. But, you know, he wasn't a Patrick Roy of 93 yet. He wasn't a Patrick Roy of 89. He was still learning his trade. I think he was only 21 and a half at the time. So, and, you know, he entered the league, couldn't speak English. So how was he going to talk to the defenseman if you can't speak English? So it's the way it goes. But Brian Hayward, he had a great season. He was kind of the unofficial MVP of the team that year. Very underrated goalie, and still one of the best goalie tandems in NHL history, Hayward and Patrick Roy. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, subscribe with our Vintage Sports File. Don't forget you're a Habs fan. That's the outstanding debate. Was Patrick Roy kind of sent out of town because of that game against Quebec in 87? Because within, you know, 6 or 7 years he was gone, and you know, it's pretty weird. But I watched that game and he just completely lost his mind. For a Montreal Canadiens goalie to give up 7 goals against the Nordiques, there was something going on, and there was even a rumor going around he threw the game, which I don't believe. You know, kind of like a Dino Bravo wrestling connection, you know, wrestling and mafia connection. I don't believe that, but anyway, he was just a young man. Thanks for listening. Bye.